The night Lagos went quiet. Ife realized quiet could be a warning. Power had just blinked out on campus. Nipa's familiar trick, and the rooftop of the old faculty building was a slice of sky. From up there, the city was a quilt of distant generators and red brake lights. Kenichi stood with his hands in his pockets, grinning like the wind itself had told him a sweet joke. "I'll be back before exam week," he said, stepping closer. 2 weeks. 3 at most. People who say at most usually mean "I'm not sure," Ife replied, hugging herself against the breeze. Ken laughed softly. "You don't trust billionaires?" "I don't trust calendars," she said. "And I don't trust promises made after 9 p.m. He loved that about her, that she could slice a boast with one sentence. When they'd met in the library, Ken had been the outrageous one at the finance table, a trust fund heir arguing with passion about cash flow in informal markets. Ife had corrected his math without looking up. He'd fallen first. She'd fallen anyway. They ate siya under a stubborn moon and planned the kind of future young people draw with big crayons. She'd sit ACCA. He'd persuade his father to spin up a venture fund for student ideas. They'd build a life that felt earned, not inherited. He kissed her forehead when she shivered. 2 weeks, he repeated. "Hold me to it." "Fine," she said, smiling. 2 weeks, Kenichi Okoye. "I'm timing you." The next morning, his number didn't ring. By afternoon, her texts turned blue with no reply. By evening, a driver in a black Prado waited outside Ken's apartment, loading suitcases like secrets. Ife ran, breath burning, and caught the driver at the gate. "Please, where is he?" The man's eyes slid away. "Oga traveled." "Traveled where?" "We have a test in." "Madam, I no. Them say make we go airport." "Oga Father Day inside." The gate clicked shut with the finality of a judge's gavel. For 3 days, Ife pretended nothing had cracked. She attended lectures. She made notes for Ken in the margins, small jokes he'd understand. She waited 2 weeks as promised, then 2 more, catching his face on business blogs. Okoye Group expands to Dubai. In one photo, Chief Emeka's palm covered Ken's shoulder like ownership. When the nausea began, Ife told herself it was stress. When it returned every morning, Auntie Kim found her at the sink, trembling. "Sit down," Kim said, voice gentle and firm at once. "Let me make tea." "I'm fine." "You're not." Kim's eyes softened. "When was your last period?" Silence is sometimes an answer. They prayed before they peed on the plastic stick. When the second line rose like a sunrise, Ife stared a long time at the truth she already knew. "What will you do?" Kim asked. "Pass my exams," Ife said at last. "Then I'll figure out the rest." She dialed Ken again. Still nothing. She wrote him an email titled "We Need to Talk" and watched it bounce. She went to his old apartment. The landlord shrugged. They paid for a year and collected key. In the weeks that followed, Ife learned the architecture of Lagos survival. She learned that shame arrives before hunger, and that courage is sometimes buying vegetables in the market with steady hands when your heart is a cracked bowl. She told herself she could be both a statistic and a miracle. Pregnant, yes, but not defeated. On graduation day, she wore a borrowed gown and a secret. A baby fluttered like a prayer beneath her borrowed belt. She smiled for photos and looked nowhere near the cameras. That night, while others celebrated, she placed both palms on her belly and spoke softly. "I don't know what your father is facing, Chitty," she whispered, trying the name on her tongue, "but I know who I am. I will not fail you." Across the ocean, in a hotel room so quiet it roared, Ken stood at a window, fists clenched. His phone lay on the table, new SIM card blinking, the old one snapped in two by his father's hand. The passport on the desk said his destination was temporary training. The non-disclosure document said otherwise. "You will thank me later," Chief Emeka had said, voice like iron. "There is a family to protect. You will marry Layla Danjuma next quarter. Politics requires alliances. No more distractions." "Her name is Ifeoma," Ken had answered. "And she is not a distraction." His father's eyebrow had barely moved. Everything is a distraction until the business is safe. When Ken slept, he saw a rooftop and the girl who didn't believe promises made after 9 p.m. He woke with her name in his mouth and nowhere to send it. He wrote letters he could not mail. He made calls that never connected. In the mirror, he rehearsed sentences that would not save him. Back in Lagos, Ife moved through trimesters like chapters she refused to skip. She finished NYSC with a belly under khaki. People talked. She learned to ignore soft sneers and loud advice. Auntie Kim sold more Gary to cover hospital bills. When labor came, the power went. Of course, and a midwife lit a lantern with hands that had delivered 1,000 babies. "Push, my dear," the woman said. "You are stronger than this night." At 3:14 a.m., Chitty arrived, small and fierce, cries slicing the dark like truth. Aoife laughed and cried at once. She counted fingers and future. She kissed the boy's forehead and promised him a story that would not end with, "We almost made it." In the years that followed, Lagos did what Lagos does, tried to break them, then taught them to bend. Aoife opened a tiny catering outfit, Nwosu Home Kitchen, and learned that jollof feeds more than bodies. Chitty grew into long legs and quick eyes, fixing radios at 8 and building websites at 12. On some nights, when the generator hummed, Aoife told him bedtime stories about a brave king who got lost and a queen who kept the kingdom alive until he found the road again. "Did the king come back, Mummy?" he would ask, eyelids heavy. "One day," she'd answer, "because hope is a lullaby and sometimes a shield." 19 years after a rooftop promise, the city changed again. Okoye Group billboards returned to the third mainland skyline with a new slogan, "Home, but bigger." Rumors said the heir had come back to reposition the empire. On a humid Monday in Yaba, Chitty received an email with the subject line, "Congratulations, Okoye Group's summer internship." He stared so long he forgot to breathe, then ran to Aoife, phone raised, joy spilling everywhere. "Mom, I got it." Aoife's hands trembled as she took the phone. Somewhere beneath her ribs, a memory opened a door and stood watching. "Praise God," she whispered, pulling him into a hug. "You worked for this. You earned it." That night, when Chitty slept, Aoife stood at her window and looked toward the island where towers blinked like eyes. She pressed a palm to the glass, another to her chest. "Lord," she said quietly, "if this is the road you planned, walk it with us. Guard my son's heart. And if old wounds must open to heal, give me strength to stand." On Tuesday morning, a young man walked into Okoye Group in a crisp shirt and wide smile, clutching a notebook full of ideas. On Wednesday afternoon, the CEO stopped mid-stride in the atrium because a boy laughed exactly like someone he once promised to come back to. Ken turned. The world narrowed. For a breathless second, he watched a familiar gait cross the marble floor, a signature tilt of the head, the quick scan of a curious mind. He didn't know it yet, but he had just hired his past. Ken didn't move until a receptionist blinked at him, unsure whether to ask if he was lost in his own headquarters. He went upstairs. "Amma," he said, stepping into his office. "Intern roster. The new cohort. I want the full list and assignments." His chief of staff was already halfway through an update. HR spread them across ops, finance, strategy. "What? Humor me." She slid a tablet across the desk. He scrolled, forcing his finger to keep an executive's pace when everything inside wanted to sprint. There it was, letters arranged like a door he'd refused to knock on. Chitty Nwosu. Nwosu was a common name. Lagos had many. He read it 3 times anyway. "Put him where?" he asked, voice neutral. "Data and strategy, logistics track," Amma said. "He's young, but the application was tight. No noise, just proof." Ken nodded, still looking at the name. "Add him to Friday's ideas in 10. I want to hear every intern who shows initiative, no matter how small." Amma's brow lifted a fraction. "We usually keep those for the last week." This week, she made a note. "Done." When she left, the office grew too large. The city looked manageable through the glass. That was the trick of height. He leaned his palms on the cool table, counted to 5 like the therapist he never kept long enough had taught him, and told the past to stay in its chair. His phone vibrated. "Layla." He answered. "Yes." "Two things," she said, efficient as ever. "Your PR wants you on Joy FM tomorrow about the East Africa hub. And my mother expects you at dinner on Saturday. Try Navy. Pascal will be there. I cannot shield you if you provoke him." "When have I ever provoked your uncle?" "Ken." He rubbed his forehead. "Fine. Joy FM, dinner, Navy. Anything else?" A pause soft enough to be almost tender. "Are you sleeping better?" "Define better." "Sleeping at all." "Some nights." "Good." Her tone clicked back to business. "Text me if you want me to run interference with Pascal. Or don't, and argue with him about divesting the Apapa asset in front of dessert." The line went quiet after logistics were done. There was a time they had spoken like co-conspirators. Duty had sanded that down into schedule. When the call ended, Ken opened the bottom drawer of his desk. A small leather folder sat where he'd left it, the edges softened by being handled and not opened. Inside was a letter he had rewritten a dozen times on flights and in hotels, a letter that began with "I didn't leave you" and ended with a line he could never make himself write. "Please forgive me." He closed the folder. He had an empire to steer and a ghost in the lobby who might be a person. Across the city, Aoife checked the time twice before she allowed herself to breathe. "First day?" Auntie Kim asked, standing in the shop door with her arms folded like a gate. "First day," Aoife said. Her voice didn't shake. It only felt like the air was different. She resisted the urge to text every hour. She wiped down trays that were already clean. She made a second pot of stew because anxiety had to be turned into something, and stew was better than worry. At 11:17 a.m., her phone buzzed. From Chitty. "All good. Big building. People walk fast. I'm fine." She pressed the phone to her chest and exhaled, a small laugh escaping that had more water than sound in it. "Big building. People walk fast." She could work with that. She typed back, "Proud of you. Don't forget to eat." "News?" Kim asked. "He's fine," Aoife said, and then, quieter, to the window more than to her sister, "Let it stay that way." "He go stay," and Kim replied, not looking up from counting change. "God no start weddin', he no go finish." By late afternoon, word drifted in the market that a convoy had blocked Marina for 20 minutes because a senator's aide forgot his ID tag. Lagos gossip on its lunch break. Aoife listened with half an ear, hands moving in the familiar rhythm of scooping, sealing, tallying. Every now and then she looked toward the island as if a person could stare across water and think protection over someone like a shawl. Chitty came home smelling like air conditioning and ambition. He talked about elevators that moved like ideas and desks that turned on with fingerprints. He didn't talk about anyone's face on the top floor. He didn't need to. Aoife had learned over the years to accept the parts of a story a boy did not yet have the tools to tell. "How are your shoes?" she asked, because mothers ask the questions at the edges when the middle is too new. "Fine. My tie tried to kill me, though." She laughed. "You'll win tomorrow." That night, after he slept, she stood at the window and watched the city glow like a constellation someone had drawn too close to the earth. "Lord," she whispered, "a hedge. Left, right, front, back. A hedge." Thursday unfurled with meetings stacked like plates, noisy, important, prone to cracking if handled badly. Uncle Pascal arrived before noon with a smile that never reached his eyes and a file that smelled like old paper and new knives. "We are still carrying out Papa like a trophy nobody wants," he said in the board strategy room, gesturing at a chart that was mostly red. "Sell. Clean house. Debt is a rumor we cannot allow." Ken didn't even look at the chart. He had seen versions of it for months. "We sell after the dredging contract closes. Not before. We will not be the fools who leave money on the table because panic feels like action." Markets reward decisiveness, Pascal said smoothly. Markets reward intelligence, Kin countered. Decisiveness without context is a toddler with scissors. A few smiles died behind polite hands. The CFO coughed into his glass. Alma wrote something brief that might have been "Don't stab family" in Q3. When the meeting broke, Alma walked with him down the hallway lined with photographs of groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings. "You were gentle," she said. "I am trying to practice self-control," he replied. She didn't say you're practiced at other things. She only handed him a printout. HR asked if you still want interns on the 14th floor tomorrow. Some VPs think it's early. The ones who think that have forgotten what new eyes can do, he said. Tell HR yes. And the boy? Chitty. He said the name as if he were testing its weight. Yes, especially. At lunch, Chitty and 3 interns found the only table with a view of the lagoon that didn't require arm wrestling a manager for space. He tried not to stare at the water too long. It made the building feel like a ship, and his stomach thought about being dramatic. Are we allowed to breathe up here? Adesawa asked, half joking, half not. I think we're supposed to inhale strategy and exhale solutions, Sei replied. They laughed the easy laugh of strangers who wanted to be kind to each other before competition arrived dressed like opportunity. At 2:11 p.m., a calendar alert landed in Chitty's inbox. Ideas in 10, lightning talks with CEO, Friday, 9 a.m., 14th floor Ideas Lab. Dress code, normal. Slides, optional. Time, 5 minutes. His heart did an unnecessary drum solo. He didn't tell his mother. Not yet. Some news needed to be carried properly before it was shared. The way you carry a hot pot from stove to table without spilling into grief or pride. He stayed late, shadowing a senior analyst who pressed 2 fingers into his temple like he was telling Excel a secret and expected it to keep it. Don't romanticize data, the analyst muttered. It will break your heart in public. Clean it. Respect it. Then distrust it again. Chitty wrote that down. He had never imagined he would get to keep advice like this in a notebook with his own pen. Evening, Victoria Island. Layla stood at the window of the executive lounge, city light riding itself across her face. She dressed like headlines, neutral, deliberate, hard to argue with. Your interns tomorrow, she said as Ken joined her. PR spun it as mentoring the next generation. Nice optic. It's not an optic, he said. It's work. Everything is both, she replied. Also, my mother asked if we're attending that charity auction next week together. We will, he said automatically. She studied him. You look distracted. I am thinking about dredging timetables. And not about boys who look like. Never mind. He turned. Like what? She shook her head, a small, contained motion. I thought I recognized a face downstairs today. The years are playing tricks on me. He looked back at the water. The years are good at that. They stood without speaking for a long minute. 2 people who shared a world and rarely shared its language. Then Alma appeared with a reminder about Joy FM, and the moment folded itself away. Friday dawned with the city pretending to be calm. On the mainland, Aoife lined up lunch packs for a corporate client who insisted on separate pepper sachets and spoons that would not bend at the first insult. She moved like a prayer being answered, efficient, grateful, precise. Her phone vibrated once. A message from Chitty, brief as a heartbeat. Big day. Pray. She kissed her thumb and pressed it to the screen, a ritual she would never explain to anyone who laughed at such small theatrics. Lord, she said, loading coolers into the borrowed Kiki. Carry my child where my legs cannot go. On the island, the Ideas Lab filled with quiet bodies and loud nerves. 5 interns. 2 VPs, Alma. A handful of managers who had filed curiosity under strategic flexibility on their calendars. At the back, Ken took a seat, sleeves rolled. The only tell that his heart was not doing exactly what the room demanded it do. He watched the first intern present, a neat idea about bundling micropayments. He watched the second argue for QR codes on receipts. He didn't let his gaze drift to the boy who would go last. He had learned that anticipation was a crueler punishment than surprise. Alma leaned toward him between talks. You want procurement to handle lunch for Monday's board offsite? Yes. I'll tell them to include dependable small vendors. It sends the right signal. Do that. Downstairs, in procurement, an officer ticked boxes in a vendor tool that was equal parts math and memory. Reliable. On time. Can handle short notice. She hit send RFQ on a small list. Across town, Aoife's phone chimed on the counter by the till. She wiped her hands, glanced down, and froze the way a person freezes not from fear, but from the sudden understanding that a story is about to change its voice. Subject: RFQ, Okoye Group, Board Strategy Offsite, 25 lunch packs. She read it twice. The city did not go quiet, but something in her did. She looked toward the lagoon she could not see from where she stood, and, because old reflexes die slowly, whispered into the day, "Give me wisdom. Keep my peace." Then she opened a new message and began to type her bid. Subject: quote, 25 lunch packs, Board Strategy Offsite. Body: thank you for the opportunity. Proposed menu: party jollof, grilled chicken, quarter cut, moi cups, dodo, coleslaw, fruit cups, bottled water. Delivery in warmers, sealed cutlery, gloves/hairnets, label for allergens. Arrival 11:45 to 12 o'clock to plate and stage for 12:15. We deliver on time, every time. Price: sensible, not timid. Note: references available, Yabatech offices, demo days. She read it twice, shaved a little from the transport line, added a contingency for extra water. Boardrooms always wanted more water than their thirst, and hit send. Then she did what she always did after stepping into the unknown. She wiped the counter as if precision could convince heaven. Across town, procurement's inbox pinged. The officer skimmed 3 quotes, ran her internal scoring, reliability, hygiene notes, on-time history, then paused at a name the system already liked: Nwosu Home Kitchen. Price fair. Menu clear. Delivery window disciplined. She forwarded her recommendation to her manager with one line: small vendor, big consistency. By 7:40 a.m., Chitty was in the logistics pod, greeting a day that smelled like coffee and moving parts. Mrs. Kalu handed out assignments like puzzles. Returns from high-rise clients have doubled in 3 weeks, she said. Not damaged items, failed deliveries. Something small is stealing time. Find it. Fix it. Don't philosophize. Chitty paired with Miriam, a senior analyst in flats and a no-nonsense bun. Let's start with delivery notes, she said, opening a dashboard. Reasons for failure. Strip the noise. They filtered thousands of logs to the handful of repeated excuses: customer unavailable, access issue, elevator not working, security delay. The cluster around access glowed like a rash. Chitty drilled into timestamps. Patterns blinked back. Most failed drops happened between 12 o'clock and 2 p.m. Buildings with keypad elevators showed longer lobby dwell times. Security desks demanded access codes nobody had. Why don't they have codes? He asked. Because we're not asking for them, Miriam said dryly. Or we're asking the wrong way. He pulled the order form. Delivery instructions had a tiny free text field people used for poetry. Call me when you get here. Don't knock too hard. No prompt for lift codes. No reminder to pre-authorize the driver at security. Hidden weight, Chitty murmured. What? Time we're losing that doesn't look like time until you stack it. They shadowed dispatch for an hour, listening to drivers call from lobbies like supplicants. Madam, your security say you know drop name. Oga, elevator need code. A beg sendam. The same song in different keys. By noon, Chitty and Miriam had a 3-step cheap fix. 1. Add a required field on the order form, elevator/access code, or no code needed. 2. Auto SMS customers 2 hours before delivery. Share lift code/security name now to avoid delays. 3. Pre-authorization script for dispatchers. One call per new building to log security rules into a building notes sheet every driver could see. Low cost, quick win, Miriam said, satisfied. Make me something I can show ops in one page. Chitty built the brief, added a small table, before/after projections, attached 3 driver quotes, with permission, about 20-minute lobby waits. He titled it The Elevator Problem, How Access Eats Our Day, and kept the language clean. At 12:34 p.m., an invite landed in his inbox. Lightning talks with CEO, ideas in 10, Friday 9 a.m. He swallowed. He'd present this. 5 minutes to make an invisible delay visible. He didn't text his mother. Not yet. Some good news needed to be cooked through before serving. Procurement wrote back to Aoife at 1:07 p.m. Subject: Award, Board Strategy Offsite Lunch. Body: Congratulations. Please confirm availability, menu, price, and submit vendor IDs for gate pass. Delivery window 11:45 to 12 o'clock. Location: Board Lounge, 15th floor, Okoye Group HQ. Contact on arrival: Folu, Procurement. Aoife closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Then she moved. Checklist mode. 2 extra burners, borrowed from church fellowship. Fresh cabbage for coleslaw, no limp leaves in a boardroom. Sturdy cutlery, no bending at the first insult. Labels with allergens and best before times. Vendor IDs, hers, Kamsi's, and Bala the driver. Chitty, she called. He appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, face bright with work. "Yes, Ma. We got it." His grin arrived before his words. "Let's go." "You are going nowhere," she laughed. "Office tomorrow. But you will print labels tonight. And test every snap lid. Board people hate spills." He saluted, mock serious. "Aye, chef." They spent the evening like a small factory that believed in love. Chitty designing neat Nwosu home kitchen stickers with contains, lines. Aoife measuring rice the way experience measures risk, by feel and by wisdom. Auntie Kim auditing quantities like heaven's accountant. Don't undersalt because bored, and Kim warned. Rich people like taste too. "Yes, Ma." When the last pack of water was stacked by the door, Aoife printed the gate passes and slid them into a clear folder. 15th floor. She looked at the number longer than she meant to, then put the paper away like a thought she didn't need. Friday morning tapped the city awake with knuckles of harmattan. Aoife started early, steam blooming from pots like prayer. Chicken grilled to color, not just temperature. Mwah lifted clean from leaves. Jollof that announced itself without shouting. By 10:35, warmers were latched, coolers sealed, labels aligned like soldiers. "Remember," she told Bala, "go straight to security, call Folu, no detour. If gate asks funny questions, smile and show pass. If elevator is busy, we wait politely. We are guests." "Yes, madam." Kamsi, her assistant, checked each tray again. "Everything tight. Everything tight." Aoife agreed, more to her own heartbeat than to Kamsi. They loaded the Kiki, then the small van for the island leg. Aoife locked the shop, pressed her palm to the door, and breathed. "Lord, go ahead." On the 14th floor, the ideas lab filled with a handful of VPs, Amma with her neat stack of keep cards, and Ken at the back, sleeves rolled. The interns lined up like 5 clear thoughts. A finance student pitched micro-bundling vendor payments. An engineer argued for QR codes on returns. Chitty went last. He put up one slide, a photo of a lobby clock beside a security desk. When a delivery fails, he began, it's rarely because the driver forgot how to knock. We found a quiet thief. Access. Buildings with keypad elevators and strict security at invisible weight. No access code, no pre-authorization, 20 minutes per attempt evaporate in lobbies. He gestured to a simple table, before versus. After. 3 cheap fixes, required access code field on order form. automated text 2 hours before delivery to collect codes. One-time security calls logged into a building notes sheet everyone can see. We tested on a small route yesterday. Repeat attempts fell by 41%. His voice didn't wobble. His hands, traders, stayed calm. Questions came quick. Cost? Almost nothing. Risk? Low. Rollout? Start with top 20 high-rise clients. Ken watched the boy speak and felt something old and bright scratch at the inside of his ribs. It was not the numbers. Those were good. But the how. Credit shared without begging. Jokes used as bridges, not weapons. A sentence about mothers who hate late food that landed like a memory. Keep. Alma murmured, already writing. And move pilot to 6 and Ikoyi next week. When it ended, Ken didn't trust himself to speak. He only nodded once at the boy, a small approval he hoped didn't look like a prayer. At 11:32 a.m., Bala called from the HQ gate. Madam, we don't reach. Security day confirmed pass. Good, Ife said. Be patient. 2 minutes later, her phone rang again. Procurement. Hello, Mrs. Nwosu. Folu. Please come to loading bay B. We'll escort your team up. On our way, she replied, breath steady. A guard scanned the passes, glanced at the company name on the warmers, and smiled. Your people always come early. Thank you, Ife said, tucking gratitude behind professionalism. They rolled the warmers through the service corridor, into a staff elevator that sighed like it had seen the world. As the doors slid shut, Ife caught a sliver of the atrium. Marble, glass, a blur of a young man in a lanyard laughing at something unseen. She didn't look twice. Work first, memory later. 15th floor, board lounge. A procurement officer met them with a checklist. You're early. Bless you. She pointed to a long credenza. Set here. Plates at the end. We'll call you at 12:10 to remove warmers. Please label vegetarian. Done, Ife said. They moved like choreography. Jollof breathed. Chicken lined up like a promise kept. Labels faced outward. Disposable cutlery refused to be flimsy. At 11:58, everything looked like reliability. The procurement officer checked her watch. Perfect. We'll take it from here. Security will escort you down once you clear. Thank you, Ife said, and meant for the chance, not just the logistics. As they packed the empty warmers, her phone buzzed. A message from Chitty, presentation done. It went well. I'll call you later. She smiled so hard it hurt. Thank God. Proud of you. She added a red heart, deleted it, replaced it with clapping hands medium dark skin tone, then sent both, then laughed at herself and tucked the phone away. In the corridor, a door opened somewhere down the hall. Voices approached, firm, familiar to the building, threaded with authority. Ife did not turn. She lifted a cooler with Kamsi and whispered, gently. They pushed through the service door just as a small group rounded the corner toward the board lounge. Alma making a note, 2 VPs mid-debate, and Kenichi, looking at a printout he did not need because he already knew it by heart. He didn't see her. Not yet. He did see, on the credenza inside the board lounge, a neat tent card by the warmers, caterer, Nwosu Home Kitchen. The surname landed like a bell inside his chest. He stopped walking. Sir? Alma asked, glancing up. Nothing, he said, too quickly. He recovered. Tell procurement good job on being on time. Alma followed his gaze to the tent card, then back to his face. She didn't ask the question her eyes knew. He took a breath. Let's begin. Back on the service lift, Ife exhaled only when the doors closed. She rested her head against the cool steel for a heartbeat. Madam, we do Bala grinned. We did, she said. God did. Downstairs, security stamped the exit passes. Outside, the air felt lighter, like the city had agreed to let her keep this victory. Her phone buzzed again. Procurement. Food excellent. Thank you. A second message followed. Please share your bank details for payment today. Ife leaned against the van and let the relief wash through her in one long, quiet wave. Across town, In a glass room where people argued in polite fonts, a CEO sat at the head of a table and tried to focus on asset divestment while a single, ordinary surname arranged his heartbeat into a rhythm he hadn't heard in 19 years. Papa is dragging us, Uncle Pascal said smoothly, laser pointer cutting red across the screen. We should sell while we still look decisive. Ken heard the words and even agreed with half the math, but the bell inside his chest would not stop ringing. Caterer, Nwosu Home Kitchen. The card had been small, the way truth sometimes is when it slips in through a service door. He didn't look toward the credenza. He didn't have to. The name had moved in. Not before dredging closes, Ken said evenly. We extract value, then exit. Decide too early, and we gift someone else the upside. The market punishes hesitation. Pascal came back, smile tight. The market punishes stupidity. Ken replied, softer, so the sentence landed like advice, not a slap. We'll sequence this. The CFO shifted, relieved. Layla, composed as always, made a neat note beside a column labeled talking points. Amma stood against the wall, reading not just the room but the air between sentences. Ken called a 10-minute break. When the boardroom thinned, he leaned toward Amma. Vendor log from procurement, he said quietly. I want the caterer's contact. I'll schedule a proper feedback session. Amma didn't blink. Because the jollof was good? Because consistency deserves a pathway, he said, choosing the sentence that was true and not the only truth. And because we should lift reliable small vendors into our system. It's the kind of policy we say we believe. Understood, she said. She did not add, and because you have been breathing differently since noon. She only tapped a message to procurement. Minutes later, a private Slack pinged on Ken's tablet. Vendor, Nwosu Home Kitchen. Contact, Ifeoma Nwosu. A phone number. An email. A registration certificate scanned into a PDF. Legit. Clean. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since the atrium. Schedule the feedback this afternoon, he said, too brisk. 15 minutes. In the small conference room by procurement. I'll sit in for optics. For optics, Amma repeated, a tiny smile that wasn't mockery. I'll arrange. On the mainland, Aoife and Kamsi were back at the shop when the payment alert hit. Okoye Group. Clean figure. No haggling. A second message arrived a minute later. Vendor feedback. Today 4 p.m. HQ. Small conference room by procurement. Optional, but we value your input. Aoife stared at the text until her heartbeat agreed to behave. Optional. Value your input. She rinsed her hands, scrubbed them dry, and told Kamsi to watch the simmer. You're going back? Kamsi asked, already knowing. Yes. If they ask how we kept time, we answer. Tomorrow's work hides inside today's reliability. She changed into a plain Ankara dress, pressed at the shoulders from a better season, and tucked the gate pass back into her bag. On her way out, she stopped at Auntie Kim's counter. Pray, she said, no preface. Always, Kim answered, pressing oil-smooth fingers over Aoife's head for a brief, fierce second. You will not be ashamed. Chitty's calendar chimed at 3:20 p.m. Ops huddle, pilot results. In the glass logistics nook, he and Miriam showed the early impact. Failed attempts down, lobby time shrinking, drivers happier. Cunnell clapped once. Good. People think savings arrive with trumpets. Often they come on two legs, don't greet anyone, and get straight to work. Chitty smiled, typed savings come quietly into his notebook, and stuffed his laptop away, just as his phone vibrated with a message from his mother, going back to HQ for vendor feedback. For PM, back to HQ. He pictured the marble, the air that smelled like glass, the high-floor corridors where people's footsteps made decisions. Pride nudged worry aside. You'll smash it, he typed. They'll learn from you. As the huddle broke, Miriam pointed at his screensaver. Is that your mom? He nodded, a warmth he didn't try to hide. Yes. She raised a boy who makes messy things behave, Miriam said. Tell her thank you from us. He pretended to salute. "I'm Ma." At 3:58, Aoife stood in the HQ reception again, the guard already recognizing her pass. "This way, Ma," he said kindly. "Procurement conference room." She walked the corridor she had walked at noon, but slower. The building hummed with its own weather. Recycled air, muted confidence, a rumor of perfume. She kept to the service side until a clerk waved her through the main hall. "Shortcut," the woman said. "Less back and forth." Aoife stepped into a brighter strip of hallway and almost collided with a cluster of interns wheeling a whiteboard toward a lift. Chitty wasn't with them. Still, she smiled at their energy, the way Future walked like it wasn't asking permission. Procurement's small conference room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and spreadsheets. Folu, the officer from earlier, greeted her with relief. "Mrs. Nwosu, thank you for coming. Please, this won't take long." 2 chairs, a glass jug of water, a feedback form, printed and apologetic. Aoife sat, palms flat on her lap, to quiet the tiny tremor that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with memory. "Someone from leadership may join," Folu added, half-whispered, as if that were both good and risky. "They're pushing a new small vendor policy. It's good for people like you." Aoife smiled, professional. "We're grateful to be considered." The door opened. Alma slid in with that calm competence that made rooms behave. Behind her, Kenichi. Not a photograph. Not a headline. A person. Older at the edges, more held in the middle. For a moment, time did nothing. Then it did everything. Fola started to stand, words tangling. "Sir, this is—" "I know," Ken said gently. His voice sounded like a road she had once walked at night. He turned to Aoife. "Thank you for coming." "Good afternoon," she managed. She stood because sitting felt like giving the moment an advantage. "Sir." He flinched at that last word in a way only she would notice. Alma took a chair, balanced a notebook on her knee, and became, mercifully, "Admin, we do quick feedback after first-time engagements," she said. "Hygiene, punctuality, packaging, risks. Procurement takes notes. We build a consistent vendor lane. 2-way. You tell us what we can do better to make your reliability easier." Fola nodded, grateful for the script. Aoife found her breath and used it. She spoke about dock congestion, elevators that stalled at lunch hour, security desks that changed rules depending on who sat there. She explained how she staged food at 11:45, removed warmers at 12:10 to keep rice from sulking, labeled allergens because no board member should be learning humility from a peanut. Ken smiled despite himself. He asked 2 ordinary questions that weren't ordinary because it was him asking, "How do you keep time?" and "What's your failure plan if a burner dies at 6 a.m.? "Backups," she said simply. "And neighbors. We borrow heat before pride. People say Lagos is hard. People are kinder than they admit." They could have spoken like that for an hour, through an HR template that hid the history beneath. But Alma's pen paused. She looked at her boss, then at the woman across from him, then turned her page. Ken folded his hands. "Thank you," he said again, softer. Then, with a glance at Alma and Folu, "Can we have 2 minutes? I'll walk Mrs. Nwosu out." Fola looked at Alma. Alma nodded once. "We'll wait outside," she said, and shepherded Folu out with the efficiency of a person who could move a mountain politely. The door clicked. Silence, close and loud. Ken spoke first, because he had built a life out of refusing to let cowards win inside him. "I didn't leave you. I know what silence feels like," she said. It felt like leaving. He did not reach for her. Some distances have rules. My father took my phone. He broke the SIM and replaced my life. They flew me out that morning with 2 guards and a calendar made of other people's interests. I wrote letters I couldn't send. I argued until argument turned into strategy, then turned into exile. It doesn't matter. The outcome was the same. You were alone." She stood very still. I heard a headline and a rumor. Then I had a boy who needed milk and light more than explanations. "I looked for you when I could," he said. "By then, everything was locked, by lawyers, by marriage, by fear. I don't say that as an excuse. I say it because it's the truth I woke up to and hated. The air shifted, a tiny mercy. She set her palm on the back of the chair to steady a feeling that had outlived its name. His name is Chitty, she said quietly, because some sentences are keys you hand over with trembling. He is 19. He is good. A sound left him that wasn't a word. He put a hand to his mouth, like something sacred had just walked into the room. I suspected, he confessed. Yesterday, in the atrium. Today, the tent card. A breath. I saw him present this morning. I didn't. I won't, he swallowed. I won't take anything from him that he does not give. Or from you. She met his eyes, searching for the boy who had once said 2 weeks and meant forever. He was there, older, held together by duty and an ache with corners. What do you want, Ken? She asked, and the name did something to both of them they didn't show. The right to do the difficult thing correctly, he said without flinching. To say I'm sorry with actions, not speeches. To stand where I should have stood, even if we must redraw the map. To be his father in a way that does not break him. To find, he stopped, reset. To find whatever is left between you and me with the reverence it deserves. And your marriage? She asked, not cruel, only precise. He did not look away. A war fought with politeness is still a war. Layla and I have held the empire together at cost. She deserves honesty. She will get it. But I won't use you to light a match in a house that still has people in it. Good, Ephes said, a small piece of tension loosening in her spine. Because I will not be a headline you regret or a weapon you use. You have never been either, he said, too quickly, truth leaking. They stood in the quiet that follows a first incision. Outside, paper moved, pen scratched, a building did what buildings do. Pretend they are just buildings. Not today, she said, voice steady now. Not to him. He is working. He is proud. Let him have this week without the world-changing name on him. Ken nodded. Not today. He fished a card from his pocket, then stopped, remembering who she was. He slid it across the table anyway, face down. A number that isn't on company files. When you decide the right time, call me. Or don't. And send me a place to come and sit and listen. She didn't touch the card yet. Some things needed a full minute to become objects instead of detonators. I will pray first, she said, because that was how she had learned to breathe. Please do, he answered, and meant it. The door opened a crack. Alma's head appeared, reading the barometer. We're good to close? We're good, Ephes said, lifting the card at last, and placing it deep into her bag among receipts and small proofs that life could be measured and balanced. Ken walked her to the corridor. They didn't touch. In the hallway, a burst of intern laughter swelled as a small group rounded the bend. Chitty at the center, animated, hands describing a victory he was still measuring. Ephes' breath hitched and then behaved. She turned slightly, as if admiring a framed photo of a ribbon cutting. Chitty's gaze flicked to her, brightening. Mom, Ken's heart misfired. The word arrived like a bell rung close to his ear. Hey, Ephes said, effortless. How did it go? Good. We cut lobby time. They said we can pilot 6 next week. He noticed Alma and the CEO a heartbeat late, straightening. Good afternoon, sir. Ma. Good work, Ken said, managing a smile that did not give away the earthquake in his chest. Chitty grinned. Thank you, sir. He turned to his mother, eager again. Are you done? Can I walk you down? I'll find my way, she said lightly. You, go and be important. He laughed, the sound that had undone Ken in the atrium. Always. He jogged off with his colleagues, their lanyards bouncing, the future walking beside them with long legs. Aoife watched him turn the corner and then looked at Ken, just once, just long enough for 2 people to agree on a truce neither of them had words for yet. God keep you, she said softly. And you, he replied. She left. He stood until the service lift swallowed her, then turned back into the world where meetings had continued to exist as if nothing new had invented itself. Layla found Alma in the elevator a few minutes later, her expression immaculate, her curiosity naked for 2 seconds. The vendor. Small business, reliable, Amma said. We're formalizing a lane for them. Layla nodded, then tilted her head. And Ken walked her out himself? Amma's mouth didn't move. He's championing small vendors this quarter. Of course, Layla said. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother about Saturday's dinner. Another from a journalist who had a talent for smelling smoke before anyone else confessed to holding matches. She typed a brief reply, then another to a private fixer. Quiet background on Nwosu home kitchen. Owner Ifioma. Keep it discreet. Send me public docs only. She slid the phone away and looked at her reflection in the elevator wall. Strategy had many rooms. She would stand in the doorway of all of them until she knew which one to shut. That evening, in a quiet office that pretended not to be lonely, Ken opened the leather folder in his drawer. He pulled out the letter he had written a dozen times and began again. I didn't leave you. He stopped, crossed it out. Beginnings mattered. I should have found a way. He let the line stand. Across the lagoon, in a room where a boy slept with a planner on his chest, Aoife sat on the floor with her back to the bed, the card in her palm, her eyes closed. She said the only prayer that had ever changed anything for her. Order my steps. The city outside did what cities do at night, hid as much as it confessed. Ken wrote until the lines blurred. He didn't finish the letter. He put the pen down and watched his reflection in the window like it might offer answers. It didn't. In Surelier, Aoife sat with the card warm in her palm until the house hummed with sleep. She slid it into her Bible and whispered, not by might. By morning, Lagos pretended every heart had rested. Saturday evening came dressed as duty. The Danjuma house on Banana Island shone the way marble shines when it wants to be a sermon. Layla greeted donors and cousins with the grace of a person who had learned to stand for long hours in high shoes and not look tired. Ken stood beside her, navy suit obedient, smile measured. Ken, Uncle Pascal said, arriving with a glass he hadn't poured himself. You look serious. Good. Serious men sell bad assets before they kill the balance sheet. Ken didn't sigh. We sequenced the exit. After dredging, not before. Indecision is a habit that dresses like caution, Pascal said, gentle as insult. Extraction is a habit that dresses like cleverness, Layla replied lightly, before Ken could answer. Save the debate for the boardroom, Uncle. We have donors tonight. Pascal's eyes warmed a degree. When he left, she turned to Ken, voice low. You're welcome. I didn't ask. You never ask. She picked up a canopy and didn't eat it. I did some reading on the small vendor policy. It's necessary, but it's also risky. Risky how? Optics. She didn't look at him. People are watching you for any move they can rename favoritism. Create a lane, yes, but build rules that protect the lane from your enemies. He watched her, surprised and not. You already started drafting something. Of course, she said. I know how this city eats good intentions. I'll send it to Alma. He could have thanked her. He didn't. They had different currencies now. Later, a journalist with bright eyes and harmless questions approached. A quick quote, Mr. Okoye. How do you balance legacy with reform? By refusing to choose one child over the other, he said, and moved on before the journalist could turn it into a clever headline. On the drive home, Layla looked out at the lagoon gloss. There's a rumor. There are always rumors. This one says our interns will present directly to you every Friday. People call it Ken's talent show. She smiled faintly. They're jealous. They should be, he said. The interns are good. She didn't laugh. There is another rumor. That you walked a caterer out yourself yesterday. He kept his eyes on the road. I walk a lot of people. A beat. Do I need to worry about any conflicts of interest? No. She nodded once. Then tighten the rules so I can answer that question on your behalf with my whole chest. Monday arrived with the confidence of a salaried email. In logistics, the access code pilot went live across 6 and Ikoyi high-rises. New field on the order form, 10 a.m. reminders to customers. A rotating phone list for security desks. Drivers grinned at the building notes sheet like it was rain in dry season. Madame Nwosu's obi is intact. One driver joked in pidgin, lifting a cooler of returns that now sat empty. Rice no day protest. You people and food, Miriam muttered, but the corners of her mouth gave up and smiled. At 11:15, an ops alert chirped. Failed deliveries down 37%, morning window. Cunnell spun in his chair and threw a stapler into the air, caught it, and said, "Nobody write a press release. Just keep going." Chitty sent his mother a single line. "We built a door. It opened." "Proud of you," she replied. "Remember to drink water." He rolled his eyes at the screen, drank 2 gulps on principle, and jogged to the 14th floor for a coffee with CEO session HR had added because somebody somewhere wanted development to look like a brochure. The room was full of interns trying to look like they weren't trying. Ken arrived without entourage. No tie. He took the stool at the front like a man who knows the room might understand him if he could get the first 2 sentences right. "Ask me anything that would help you work better," he said. "If you ask me about my favorite color, I will lie." Laughter loosened the air. "What's your most expensive mistake?" Adesawa asked, fearless as ever. "Defending a plan because I liked it," he said promptly. "Not because Data liked it." "How do you deal with people who don't like you?" Sei asked. "I don't ask them to," he said. "I ask them to respect the work." Chitty raised a hand, heartbeat doing dramatic things he pretended not to notice. "What's one thing you look for in someone you want to keep?" Ken didn't look at him for long. He looked at the ceiling like the answer might be written there, then back at the room. "Humility that doesn't insult competence," he said. "If you're very good and still able to say, 'I don't know' before you learn, you're a gift." He had an old habit with pens, flip, catch, flip, that he didn't notice he was doing. Chitty did it too when he was thinking. They did it at the same time once, and the interns laughed, and Ken put the pen down like it had betrayed his face. When it ended, HR took photos where everybody smiled like people who could afford it. Ken shook hands in a line. When Chitty stepped forward, the moment stretched thin and then behaved. "Keep your notes," Ken said. "Your brain will not always be this young." "I brought 2 notebooks," Chitty replied, unsure why he said it, certain it was the right thing to say. "Good," Ken said. His eyes softened. "Don't let the second one be for writing apologies you don't owe." Chitty frowned, warm, confused. "Sir." "Work," Ken said, releasing his hand. "You're good at it." By noon, Layla's fixer sent back a neat, sanitized package. Nwosu home kitchen registration, photographs from 2 charity events the shop had catered, a small feature on a Yaba blog about the jollof that feeds Demo Day, and a public record, voter ID register, listing an Ifeoma Nwosu whose age and address fit too neatly under the timeline in Layla's head. She skimmed, aware of the way suspicion wears the clothes of certainty if you let it. She closed the file and made a decision that surprised even her. She drove to Suralere. The shop's painted sign leaned into the street as if it wanted to greet passers-by by name. Inside, Heat and Pepper behaved themselves. Aoife stood behind the counter, hair wrapped, apron clean, focus precise. "Good afternoon," Layla said. Her voice didn't try to be sweet. It tried to be clear. "I'm Layla." Aoife's eyes registered the introduction, then everything else. "Good afternoon," she replied, polite, unbothered by people who arrived with perfume and agendas. "We have 3 trays left. What will you like?" "I came to ask about policy," Layla said, surprising herself with the truth. "We're formalizing small vendor lanes. I wanted to hear from someone who is already reliable." "Policy," Aoife repeated, more question than word. "Procurement rules," Layla clarified, tone leveled. "A consistent path for people like you. So nobody can say later that you were favored without process." The room seemed to sigh in relief that someone had said the quiet thing. Aoife wiped a dry hand on a dry towel and nodded once. "That would be good." They spoke for 10 minutes the way women speak when they cannot yet be friends and refuse to be enemies. Aoife described gate delays and invoice nets that were too long for small kitchens that bought diesel daily. Layla asked about hygiene protocols and backup plans. Neither woman mentioned a name. Both knew it was there. At the end, Aoife said, "Whatever rules you make them true for all. Lagos does not respect shortcuts. It only tolerates them until they embarrass you." Layla almost smiled. "Agreed." Puff puff. Aoife asked, "Because hospitality is not agreement, it is discipline." Layla accepted. She ate one, surprised by joy. "It's very good." "I have practice," Aoife said. On the way out, Layla paused at the door. "I am not your enemy." "I know," Aoife answered, and meant it in the present tense, because the future always adds its own words. At 3 p.m., compliance put a note on Alma's desk. "Vendor pilot, good." Attached was a smaller note someone had slipped into the file. "Anonymous concern. CEO favoring outside vendor he knows." The handwriting looked like somebody who wanted trouble, but didn't want handwriting analysis to find them. Alma sighed. She had been expecting this. She walked the file to Ken. "Predictable," he said, reading it, more tired than angry. "We don't run from it. We build rules out loud." He buzzed Layla. "Your draft. Send it." It arrived in minutes. Lean, fair, difficult to weaponize. Vendor spend caps for first 3 engagements. Rotating panels for feedback. A cooling-off period if any executive had a personal relationship with a vendor. Automatic publication of small vendor contracts every quarter, names included. "It will cost us some speed," Alma warned. "It will buy us protection," Ken answered. "Publish it. Put my name on the memo." He added a line at the top before signing. "We rise only as fast as our rules let us stand." At the shop, Aoife's phone buzzed with a new email. Okoye Group. Small vendor lane, policy announcement. She read it twice, eyes tracking the clauses that looked like they had been written by someone who knew how Lagos could turn gratitude into gossip. Then another email came in. Reorder. Executive Roundtable, 20 packs, 12:30 p.m. tomorrow. There was a satisfaction in it that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with being seen correctly. Chitty came home carrying 2 plastic folders and an energy that made the room brighter. "How was the CEO coffee?" Aoife asked, only half teasing. He said humility that doesn't insult competence is rare. Chitty reported, like scripture. "Mummy, can I tell you something strange?" He flips his pen the same way I do. Aoife's smile was a private thing. "Pen is universal," she said, then softer. "I'm proud of you." He dropped onto the mat, then sat up again like a thought had tugged his sleeve. "Do you ever feel like something big is about to happen?" She folded a dish towel carefully. "Every time I add salt to jollof," she said, and they laughed until the worry in the question relaxed its shoulders. The week twisted. Good news arrived with a shadow. On Thursday morning, procurement called Aoife with embarrassment in their throats. "Mrs. Nwosu, there's been a pause. A formal inquiry. Someone lodged a concern. Routine. Please don't be offended." "About me?" she asked, eyebrows lifting like they were tired of being surprised. "About the lane," the officer said, as if vagueness could soften a blow. "We'll resolve it quickly." When the call ended, Aoife sat for a full minute, hands still. Then she stood and rearranged trays that did not need rearranging. "Enemy?" Auntie Kim asked from the doorway, as if reading a weather report. "Not enemy. City," Aoife said. "But they have rules now. We will stand inside them." Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number, the one on the face-down card. "Ken, there's a temporary hold. Compliance ritual. It will clear. I wanted you to hear it from me before gossip carries it with dirty hands." She stared at the message, at the quiet courtesy of it. Then she typed, "Aoife, I heard. Thank you. We will be fine." A beat. Then she added, "Because honesty is sometimes the only way to stay upright. We should talk soon. Not at your office." His reply was immediate. like he had been waiting on the other side of the door. Ken, name the place. She looked around the shop, steam, trays, a boy's backpack on a chair, and chose what she could manage. Ife, Sunday evening. Lagoon Front Park, Unilag, where the city pretends to be quiet. Ken, I'll be there. She put the phone down and felt both lighter and heavier. She climbed the stairs to the mezzanine, where Chitty sometimes studied, and stood in the square of light from the small window. Lord, she said plainly, give me words that build and hands that do not shake. In the glass world, Uncle Pascal smelled opportunity the way Lagos men smell money at a bus stop. At the next board prep, he leaned toward Ken with the courtesy of a cobra. Complaints already, Kenichi, about your vendor project. Small leaks sink big ships. It's not a leak, Ken said without lifting his eyes from the page. It's documentation. This is not a school, Pascal said, smile pinned on. It is a family company. We agree on the last two words, Ken said. We disagree on the first. Layla arrived with a folder labeled Vendor Lane. Liv placed it on the table so the label faced Pascal and sat. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The folder did the speaking. We have rules. Pascal's smile thinned. You think paper protects you. I think paper protects the company, she replied. Amma, from her corner, wrote one sentence in small letters. Some wars end when someone refuses to fight them in secret, and closed her notebook. Sunday carried ceremony. Church in the morning. Fried plantain no one had earned yet. And Kim's laughter, loud and medicinal. Chitty fixed a neighbor's standing fan and returned with his face shining like he'd been paid in sunlight. Ife cooked stew like a woman untying knots without looking. At 6:12 p.m., she stood at the Unilag gate and told herself to breathe like a person who belonged to her own life. The lagoon front held students, lovers, parents, joggers, mosquitoes, the democracy of evening. The water said its same old thing to the edge of the land. Ken was already there, hands in pockets, wearing an ordinary shirt like he was trying to be forgiven by fabric. He didn't come closer until she nodded once. They sat on a bench that had seen better paint. Thank you for choosing here, he said. Some places tell the truth better. Tell me everything you haven't said, she replied, because time is a currency and some bill must be paid first. He told her about the morning his father's men came, about the way silence can be enforced with documents and tickets, about the marriage that had begun as a merger and turned into a truce. He did not romanticize his pain. He did not make her the audience for his absolution. He owned the shape of it and left the edges rough as they had always been. When he finished, she told him about labor by lantern, about shame that tries to rename you and fails, about a boy who stopped fevers with stubbornness, about a kitchen that laughed at poverty and then hired it to wash plates. She did not make herself heroic. She made herself accurate. They sat with it, the math of 19 years, while water hit something it could not move and tried again anyway. I want to see him, he said at last, voice careful. Not as a CEO, not at an event, as a father, on your terms. I will not surprise him, she said. I will not break his work days with your regret. Agreed. I will not let tabloids teach him our names. Never. Silence again. Then she said the thing she had not planned to say this soon, and found it waiting in her mouth anyway. We can begin with truth. We will write the rest later. He nodded, eyes bright behind control. When, after his exams this term, she said, practical as a ledger. 2 weeks. Give him space to have one victory untouched. 2 weeks, he repeated, the words tasting like repentance and vow at once. Hold me to it. The sentence hung above the water like a ribbon from another life. They both heard the echo and let it speak without interrupting. Layla knows something, she added, because secrets rot when left in pockets. She suspects, he said. She came to your shop. I know, Ife replied, surprising him and not. She ate Puff Puff and told me to make the rules true for all. He exhaled a laugh that wasn't cruel. That sounds like her. I don't hate her, Ife said. I don't envy her. Life gave her a war I don't want. He looked at her a long time, then away. Thank you for not making her the villain of our story. She can cast herself if she wants. I will not do it for her. They rose when the light thinned. At the gate, he didn't ask to walk her farther. She didn't ask him to say more. They understood that some days earn quiet. On the bus ride home, she texted Chitty, "Buy bread if you pass the junction." 2 loaves. He replied with a photo of a nylon bag and 3 laughing emojis. Across the lagoon, in a room that forgave nobody easily, Ken sat with his unfinished letter and wrote a new first line. I should have found a way. I didn't. I am here now. He put the pen down and, for the first time in 19 years, allowed himself to imagine saying it aloud. Outside, the city rehearsed tomorrow's noise. Inside, 3 people listened for the same future without yet calling it by name.